let's have a look at this. We've now got to make our watersheds or drainage basins. What we're actually going to be doing is creating drainage basins, but the tool we need is called Watersheds. So we'll look for Watershed there, put that in, there's our tool, and let's just click on open and find out what it wants. So the input D8 flow direction raster, good. So that sounds like flow direction to me. So we can click on that, flow direction. The input raster or feature PowerPoint data. Well, that's obviously, what is it? Well, that is actually our streams raster. It's down there, or stream raster. Not entirely obvious. If you hold the mouse pointer over there, you'll get some indication as to what it might represent. For more information, or you can click on that there to find out even more. But for us now, you know, just to get through this without wasting too much more time, it's the stream raster. The PowerPoint field is going to be value. We'll just leave that as it is. The output. Right, so we want to output something here, and it's going to be called Watershed Raster. So we click on that, and we go Watershed Raster, and then we click on OK. And then that's that. We auto layout it just to make it a little nicer. But we know we have this thing with watersheds and this raster. What we actually want is some sort of vector layer feature. So we need to convert this raster into a vector. And as this is, it says watershed, but what it's actually creating is going to be an area feature, a drainage basin. So we're going to create polygons of this. So we then click on this and we go raster to polygon. Yeah, and we can right click on that, click on open. The input raster is going to be our watershed raster. The value, and the output polygon feature is going to be called watersheds in our database. So watersheds or shed, however you want to name it. It's suggesting that I already have that, perhaps from a previous it's required. Not quite sure why it's complaining over that. Warnings and output polygon feature. It will be overwritten. Okay, there's a previous one testing this exercise. It's going to be overwritten. If you get that up, don't worry about it overwriting something that already exists, unless you know you don't want to. Simplify polygons, yes, a little bit. Otherwise, they just look boxy. Create multiple features. No, we want them to be separate watersheds. So let's click on OK there, and then we'll just auto layout that. And then there we go. So that's our model. We can't quite see all of it, so let's just zoom out a little bit. That's our model. And so what happens if we go back to the instructions and we look at this? Well, that matches. I think we've done it. Good. So the next instruction was to just run the model. And there are a couple of ways of running the model. We can just press the run button up there. That will work. Or we can go to catalog, and under the toolbox we have the model there. And we can just double click it or right click it and press open to run it. That's what we will do later on in the exercise, but for now, let's just run it from here. And please work properly. Yeah. I would suggest keeping this window open here rather than, don't click on this close on completion. It's not essential, but it could be handy to look at what's going on and to track how long each step takes and get some idea of what's happened in this. This will probably take quite a bit longer to run on your computer if you're working on the remote desktop. This went quite quickly for me, so we're done. We've actually finished doing the analysis, and if we go to catalog and we look at our database, nothing's happened. If we right click, we can go refresh. We've got all of these files in there. So we've actually managed to perform an analysis. If we now go back to our map tab, go back to catalog, and what we want, let's just chuck in the streams there. We've got some green streams. Now streams, generally speaking, depending on the conditions, of course, but they're not generally speaking green. In maps, they're usually not green as well. So what we can do is we can go to the symbology, and we can change that color to something a little bit more watery. What happens if we do that? Click on apply, and we've got our watery network there with the streams from the property map, from the Swedish Land Survey property map, overlaid on top if we want them. Because when we look at this analysis, we can see that it's actually just finding a single-celled or a very narrow, these are all just narrow lines, rather not single cells, to define the water. If we actually remove the TIFF as well, we can see these lines. They're all single lines, and they're not always terribly pretty. They tend to be quite good nowadays. We've got these double lines. You can think about what these lines might represent. I mean, you can look at where they are in the topography and on the map, why we would have these double lines. But it's turned out reasonably okay, but it's not entirely good. Generally speaking, when we get to these large, wide, flat areas out into the large bodies of water, things start to look a bit odd. And so it could be an idea when we're mapping to actually mask out those ugly bits where we know there is a body of water. That's just a possibility that we can use when creating our map. So that was the initial analysis using the model builder to link together a whole load of tools that we needed to perform an analysis. We could have done this step by step, creating each file, just going to geoprocessing, create the next file, create the next file, on and on. But with this, we have a ready toolbox to use. So we're now done with this part of the exercise. In the next video, we'll look at the next stage of using Model Builder. And also, I will create a video at some point for the Python coding side of things.